And if you can give a Bible study to somebody on Revelation 17, you can expose the papacy as the great prostitute, the great whore, beast of Revelation. And there came one of the seven angels, which had the seven vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, Come hither, I will shew unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters. I'm just going to proof text this out really quick, just the waters. So if we come down to Revelation 15, just scrolling down on the screen, and he saith unto me, The waters which thou sawest, where the whore sitteth, are the peoples and the multitudes and the nations and the tongues. So coming up out of a very densely populated area, coming up in an area on a continent which has many different nations, many different peoples, and many different languages. Okay, so we should be looking when we look at Revelation 1, where's the context of this book? Where's the context of this book? Well, it's being given to John. It's being given to the servant John in the first verse, the revelation of Jesus Christ, which God gave unto him. God, God gave unto Jesus Christ to show unto his servants things which must shortly come to pass. And he sent and signified it by his angel. This would be Gabriel unto his servant John. Okay, so John receives this revelation, and who bear record of the word of God and of the testimony of Jesus and of all things that he saw. And blessed is he that readeth, and they that hear the words of this prophecy, and keep those things which are written therein, for the time is at hand. So presently, this revelation is beginning to unfold. We have a historical view. We don't believe it was all fulfilled at the beginning, the preterist view. We're not dispensationalists, we're futurists, where we believe it all fulfills at the end. We believe that it unfolds down through time, and for the time is at hand. So it begins here, and when you go into Revelation 8, for instance, and you have the seven trumpets, and I saw the seven angels which stood before God, and to them which were given seven trumpets. As you unpack the seven trumpets and these seven judgments, you see that the first four begin with the Roman Empire. The time is at hand. These judgments are soon to come. These judgments are soon to come. Just a second proof text to this logic, Second Thessalonians chapter 2. This talks about now we beseech you, brethren, by the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ and by our gathering together unto him. The book of Revelation, speaking of the revelation of Jesus Christ, is a book um, that is giving God's people, hope and comfort, and it's tracing down to the manifestation of Jesus Christ, the coming of Jesus Christ in the clouds, the revelation of him in the clouds, him here. We're going to see him one day face to face. Now we beseech you, brethren, by the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ and by our gathering together unto him, that you be not soon shaken in mind or be troubled, neither by spirit, nor by word, nor by letter, as from us, as that day of Christ is at hand. So don't be troubled that the second coming is near, speaking for us presently. Remember in John, it's the prophecy is for the time is at hand, right? So the revelation is just beginning to unfold in John's day. And Paul is saying, I beseech you, I'm pleading with you regarding the coming of Christ, the coming of our Savior, that you don't be troubled. No letters, nor by letter as from us, whether that be somebody counterfeiting my letters, or even if we were to apostatize and write letters telling you that the day of the Lord is at hand, don't be troubled by any of it. That don't be deceived by any means, for that day shall not come except there come a falling away first, and the man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition. And it goes on to identify who this is. Verse 4, who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called God, or that is worshipped, so that he as God sitteth in the temple of God. showing himself that he is God. If I were to come here and I would say Pope, throne, cherubims, look at him sitting between, look at him sitting between the two cherubims right there. Or hopefully those pictures aren't too small. But you see that right there on the screen. He's sitting in a giant golden throne right there. People on his left, people on his right, between two cherubims. It's like the mercy seat, right? Look how grandiose and large and fantastic all of this is. How wonderful all this is. He built himself a throne room, right? Who literally, we're sticklers for the literal. Who is literally exalting himself above all that is called God or that is worship, so that he as God sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. Calling him he calls himself the vicar of Christ. They believe in the theology that he's not just a representative of Christ, he's actually Christ in the flesh. And they have these wild doctrines, these blasphemous doctrines. And yeah, you can see it literally there that he's doing that. Nobody comes close. Nobody comes close to the papacy in regards to showing themselves as God, acting like a God. Remember ye not that when I was yet with you, I told you these things, and now ye know what withholdeth, that he might be revealed in his time. Okay, so there's something holding the Antichrist, the papacy, from coming into existence. For the mystery of iniquity doth already work. Only he who now letteth will let until he be taken out of the way. Now, we've looked at this before, Henry Guinness, and it says the fathers held that the Roman Empire was the let or hindrance, referred to by Paul in 2 Thessalonians, which kept back the manifestation of the man of sin. This point is of great importance. The early church knew, he says, what this hindrance was. The early church tells us what it did know upon the subject, and no one in these days can be in a position to contradict its testimony as to what Paul had by word of mouth only told the Thessalonians. It is a point on which ancient tradition alone can have any authority. Modern speculation is positively impertinent on such a subject as to the let or hindrance to the manifestation of the man of sin referred to in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. Mr. Elliot says, we have the consenting testimony of the early fathers, from Irenaeus, the disciple of St. John, down to Chrysostom and Jerome, to the effect that it was understood to be the imperial power ruling and residing in Rome. So once the Roman Empire collapses, which is what the trumpets that we were just looking at is talking about, once the Roman Empire collapses, then the man of sin, then the Antichrist power is going to arrive in world history. So coming back to Revelation 17, coming all the way back to Revelation 17, there's a great whore that sitteth upon many waters. We're looking for a place that has many nations, kindred, tongues, and people, and it's going to naturally unfold out of the Roman Empire. This is where the book of Revelation begins. This is where it begins. God declares the end from the beginning. This is where it ends. If you trace down the seven trumpets down to the end of the world, it begins with Rome. All roads lead to Rome, and it ends with the destruction of the papacy. In fact, let me jump right back real quick. That's how actually the prophecy in Thessalonians ends when it speaks, and then shall that wicked be revealed, whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth, and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming. And destroy with the brightness of his coming. Well, where does Revelation also speak about that? Yeah, that happens at the seventh vial. And there came one of the seven angels which had the seven vials, and taught with me, saying unto me, Come hither. If I just jump back to the preceding chapter and come down to the seventh vial, it says, and the seventh angel poured out his seventh vial into the air, and there came a great voice out of the temple of heaven from the throne, saying, It is done. Okay, this is the voice of God, the voice of deliverance. And there were voices and thunders and lightnings, and there was a great earthquake. such as was not since men were upon the earth. So mighty an earthquake and so great. And the great city was divided into three parts, and the cities of the nations fell, and the great Babylon came into remembrance before God to give unto her the cup of the wine of the fierceness of his wrath. And every island fled away, and the mountains were not found. And there fell upon men a great hail out of heaven, every stone about the weight of a talent. And the men blasphemed God because of the plague of the hail, for the plague thereof was exceeding great. So this is a voice of deliverance. This is when the great Babylon is going to come into remembrance before God. He's going to pour hail on her, and then he comes and destroys her with the brightness of his coming, as spoken of in Second Thessalonians. So this angel that pours out the seventh vial comes and talks and is going to explain more about who this great whore is. Now, where does the Antichrist come out of? Again, Rome. That's the center of prophecy. So is Rome also a place with many waters? Nation, or is Rome settled in the midst of a place with many nations and tongues and peoples? And that's exactly what Europe is, right? America, we have the United States. We all speak one language. There's a monoculture here, right? But in Europe, you have different tongues, different nations, different peoples, and this great whore comes out of a continent like that, right? And it wouldn't make sense to look in Africa or Asia for this great whore to emerge, or even the Middle East, because the prophecy when you study the trumpets, it's dealing with the collapse of Rome. The revelation is beginning there. And then Paul is also saying that the Antichrist is coming up out of the collapse of imperial Rome. Okay, so the many waters, we've identified that these many waters is talking about the nations of Europe. And this great whore comes out of this region. This is a region. Okay, this is a place. The second beast comes up out of the earth in Revelation 13, so this would be an unpopulated or a better way to, it's a wilderness that doesn't have many civilized nations and peoples. Okay, so that would be America. Okay, so the great whore sitteth upon many waters. Second verse. With whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. So you see church and state here. We have a great whore. What is a woman in Bible prophecy? What is that a symbol of? That sitteth on many waters. Jeremiah 6:2 says, I have likened the daughter of Zion to a comely and delicate woman. So God's people, Zion, is a lovely woman, is a delicate woman, a beautiful, lovely woman. This is a whore. This is a wicked, evil woman. We find her counterpart. We find her the other church, and these powers are antagonistic towards one another. And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. And she, being with child, cried, travailing in birth and pain to be delivered. So, this is that wonderful Zion. This is God's people, his church. And this is the apostate church, the one that has the Antichrist, the one that is put himself in place of Christ. This is the great whore here. So, verse 2 says, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication. So, you see here, okay, the kings are the state, the woman is the church, and they're fornicating with one another. And the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. So, the wine of her fornication, when you sleep, with a woman, you become one flesh with the woman. If you sleep with a harlot, you become one flesh with the harlot. How are the governments, how are the states, how are these nations becoming one flesh with this church here? Well, it's the wine of her fornication. It's the wine of her fornication, and the wine is symbolic of the false teachings of the doctrines, the creeds. Stay yourself and wonder, cry ye out and cry. They are drunken, but not with wine, and they stagger, but not with strong drink. So we can see here that wine can be a symbolic of something. For the Lord hath poured out upon you the spirit of deep sleep, and hath closed your eyes. The prophets and your rulers and the seers hath he covered. And the vision of all is become unto you as the words of a book that is sealed, which men deliver to one that is learned, saying, read this, I pray thee. And he saith, I cannot, for it is sealed. So they're going to the pastor, they're going to the theologian, they're going to the learned man, they're going to the scribe, they're going to the Pharisee, so to speak, and they're saying, interpret this. And he can't. He's drunk. The book is delivered to him that is not learned, saying, read this, I pray thee. And he saith, I am not learned. But also they have erred through wine and through strong drink, and through strong drink are out of the way. The priest and the prophet have erred through strong drink. They have swallowed up the wine. They are out of the way through strong drink. They err in vision and they stumble in judgment. For all tables are full of vomit and filthiness, so that there is no place clean. So this, the chapter after this in Isaiah 29, it's saying that the book is sealed. The book is sealed. Here it's saying that the tables are full of vomit. They err in vision. They've got the vision wrong. They've got the vision is the vision again. Here's that word vision again is become unto you as the words of a book that is sealed. Now, the book of Daniel would be sealed until the time of the end, and it was soon after that in Habakkuk chapter 2 that they wrote the vision and made it plain upon tables. Remember, they're vomiting on the tables? Write the vision and make it plain upon tables. So they're misinterpreting the prophecy. They're even when it's made plain upon tables, they're so drunk that they still can't see it. They still can't comprehend it. They still can't accept it. They still can't accept the truth of God's revelations, of his three angels' messages, of the interpretation of the visions of Daniel and John. So what we see here is wine and this drunkenness represents error. It represents error. And they go so far as that they take these errors and they codify them in creeds, and people just refer to their creeds. People become bigoted. They can't accept the truth. They can't accept the truth that will bring them out of these fallen churches. And what happens, what we're seeing in Revelation 17 is the kings of the earth, the nations of the earth are getting involved in this. They too have accepted these creeds. They too have accepted these doctrines, and they are going to work on behalf of these churches to execute judgment against those who are not drunk. They're sober. They're seeing clearly. They understand the prophecies and understand the visions. And the kings are going to be the arm of the papacy. They're going to be the sword of the papacy, and they're going to persecute God's people. Now, this has happened in the past. This has happened in the past. If we go to Daniel chapter 11, jump down here, do Daniel chapter 11, 31. And arms shall stand on his part, and they shall pollute the sanctuary of strength, and shall take away the daily. We're going to insert the word desolation and take away the daily desolation, and they shall place the abomination that maketh desolate. So the first desolating power leaves Rome. Only now he who letteth will let, Paul was saying. And then this next desolating power, the papacy, comes onto the scenes. Now, arms are going to stand on the part of the papacy. It's a church, but it has the power of the state. It's fornicating with the kings of the earth in order to carry out its bidding. And such as do wickedly against the covenant shall be corrupted by flatteries. So how do they get people to sign on to these creeds that make no sense? These unscriptural creeds, these unbiblical doctrines. through flatteries, um, through briberies. But the people that do know their God shall be strong and do exploits, and they that understand among them shall instruct many, yet they shall fall by the sword, and by flame, and by captivity, and by spoil many days. This is the 1260 years, or the 42 months, or the times, and the dividing of times, the days, the many days, the 1260 days where the church was in the wilderness. They were preserving scripture. The Waldensians were up in the Alps. Columba was on Iona, and they were preserving script. They were preserving the scriptures. This is how the scriptures were handed down to us. And by the way, they had an older Bible than the Latin Vulgate of Jerome that was based on the majority text. It was based on the Greek, Old Testament and New, based on the Septuagint and New Testament Greek. And it was the Old Italia, if I'm saying that right, Bible. So they had a superior Bible to Jerome's Bible, and they were translating that Bible down. Um, they were preserving that Bible down through the centuries. So we see that arms are going to stand on the part. So they have the nation states, they have militaries that are standing on their part, and Daniel 8 says the same thing. It says here, yea, he magnified himself even to the prince of the host. Okay, Rome is magnifying himself towards Christ, and by him the daily desolation was taken away, Rome in its first phase, and the place of his sanctuary was cast down. Remember, it talks about the sanctuary of strength being polluted. This is dealing with the Pantheon. Here we've looked at this before. One of the oldest remaining structures from ancient Rome. God preserved it for this day because it's an important part of Bible prophecy. So this was the sanctuary of strength at one time, and they had all the Romans would commandeer. They would they would come and they would conquer these nations, and they would take their idols, they would take their false gods back to their sanctuary. And so they combined all the religions into one essentially. They brought the Greek gods here and the other vanquished gods of their enemies, and they would um, they would pray to their enemies' gods and saying, "If you deliver this city, we will worship you better uh, than this nation." And they would conquer and they would bring all the gods. And this is how they were able to unify a great empire with people with many other different religions, is they would take these gods. Now, the papacy, all they did was baptize all this. That's why you see, for Peter, you see this old ancient a statue of Jupiter, right, in the Vatican. So they baptized all these idols, uh, Christianized them. And so they are the second desolating power that comes up next. And they were even more merciless against God's people. The Romans were throwing them in Colosseums, feeding them to the lions, um, throwing them on crosses and executing them. But that's not as bad as what the papists were doing. Papists were torturing them in dungeons and things more dark and more ruthless and more deceptive. Now, the prophecy that we're looking at about the daily being taken away is here, since the conversion of those pagan kings, pagan rites, and sacrifices have not been known in Rome. Thus, the place of his sanctuary was cast down. Soon after this appeared soon after this, the man of sin appeared, and St. Paul's instruction to the Thessalonians was fulfilled. Only he who now letteth or hindereth will let until he be taken out of the way. And then shall the wicked be revealed. The daily abomination was taken away, and the transgression of desolation, popery, set up in its place. The idols of the nations conquered by the Romans were scarcely deposited in some niche or apartment of this temple, and in many cases became objects of worship by the Romans themselves. Could we find a temple of paganism that was more strikingly his sanctuary? Was Rome the city of the or place of the Pantheon cast down by the authority of the state? Yes, it was. So, the place of his sanctuary is cast down. Roman paganism, Roman imperialism is taken out of the way, and a host, an And arms, remember in Daniel 11, and arms were given to him, and a host was given him against the daily by reason of transgression. And it cast down the truth to the ground, and it practiced and prospered. By reason of transgression, Paul puts it another way. He says, and the mystery of iniquity doth already work. It does already work. The mystery of iniquity, cloaking devil worship and paganism with that thin veneer of Christianity. The daily sacrifice was taken away by reason of transgression. It was through the mystery of iniquity. Some Romans were converting to the true faith, the faith of the one true God. They worshiped on the seventh day. The others were being Christianized, but it was the mystery of iniquity that was working. It was apostate Christianity that was taking hold. So paganism was being defeated both by Christians, both true Christians and apostate Christians. And by reason of transgression, this was underwriting the Roman Empire. Now, the true Christians weren't destroying the Republic of Rome or the good principles of Rome. They were, in fact, strengthening that. And so, some ways, they were preserving Rome, and they were reforming it in a good way. But there was another class that was actively destroying Rome. It was a treasonous force, and it was the papists that were doing that. And they were destroying the principles that made Rome great. And a host was given him. And so an army was given him. How was the army given him? I'll show you. I'll show you how. Look at this. They were baptizing the pagans. They were funding the pagans. They were funding the military. Now, Solomon says there's no new thing under the sun. That which has been is that which shall be, and that which has been done shall be done. And there is no new thing under the sun. If you look to the politicians in America, yes, APAC has a tremendous amount of control. But if you look at their religious affiliation, you're going to see that Catholicism is a dominating force in America politics. There's a few Jewish politicians, but there are lots of Catholic politicians. The greater majority is on the Democratic side, but the Republicans have a lot of Catholics as well. They're more the Republicans are more evangelical and apostate Protestant, but there are a lot of Catholics too, an alarming amount of Catholics. So they have the politicians. If you look at NATO, CIA, military industrial complex, those in the military, I submit to you that you're going to find a lot of Catholics there, many more than Jews, many more than carnal Jews. And Jews aren't the only Zionists. There are evangelical Zionists, there are Catholic Zionists, there are a lot of people that have interest in the territory of the state of Israel. So how did they did it by flatteries, they did it by briberies, they probably did it by blackmail, they probably did it by inducements, they probably did it by favors. They got these pagans to baptize themselves. These were weak conversions. These were conversions being done for political gain, for power. And who's administering this? The great whore. This is they're fornicating here. Clovis was killing in the name of the triune God. Let's read about him. By his baptism, he made himself the ally of the papacy and his protector as well as that of the people. Subjugated the Arian Visigoths in 507, 508. Right? He's fighting on behalf of this creed. He's drunk on the wine of Babylon. Ambassador of Annacius conferred on Clovis the insignia and title of Council of Rome and Patrician. A Catholic king of the West for the first time became the supreme power in Rome. Supremacy of Catholics began in 508, and supremacy of the papacy began in 538. Yeah, 508, yeah, 538. These are the two bookmarks. Like you have 1798 in 1844 on the back end of those prophetic periods. This is the front end, and it's dealing with the rise of Catholicism. So arms are going to stand on this part. Now back to the Revelation. One last thing that I want to say. This also goes to show you the importance of liberty of conscience and religious freedom. Liberty of conscience and religious freedom. According to James Madison, and Thomas Jefferson, the most important human right, the most important inalienable right, the most sacred of all is religious freedom, is liberty of conscience. And this is maintained by separating the power of church and state, of separating these two powers. And that's what we have to defend. And we have to show that there's a papacy that's behind bringing these two things back together, these eroding this check and balances in America. So, what would it be truly to make America great again? What would be the true MAGA? What would be the true American first principle? What does it really mean to be in America? Because America is in a crisis right now where we're losing our identity. We're losing our identity. And so, what is the true principle that made us great? Well, Miss White actually speaks of it in The Great Controversy. And Miss White says it's republicanism. That's the political side, the political um, ideology, republicanism. And the other is Protestantism. Now, what's interesting is as Catholic immigrants have been coming into the country for the last 200 years. You have Irish was the first wave, you have Italian, then you have Mexican and the Latin Americans that came. And now we're getting this, now it's getting even more bizarre because now, like Middle Easterners, there are a lot of people from really strange countries. It's one thing for Europeans to be coming here. It's one thing even for Mexicans to be coming here because we share a border with them. And Mexicans are actually half European. But we're seeing people that are very peculiar, very strange. We really are seeing an alien invasion. Or you have people with radically different belief systems, radically different cultures, and they're flooding into America. Yeah, a nation is a people, right? And this can't unless you can assimilate them into republicanism and into Protestantism, the nation is going to break. And isn't this the story of the seven trumpets too? This is the story of the seven trumpets, is you had barbarian invasions. Okay, so there is definitely a race to get these newcomers into America the truth. And I submit to you that we should be focusing on them more so than the natives, because these other people have had the people that have been in this country for a long time have a lot of opportunity to learn about these things. But yeah, going back to make America great again, what is the true make America great again? We have to do a good job of telling people, well, it's what made America great was republicanism and Protestantism. And as Catholics came into this country, they shift the Overton window to the left. They shift people away from republicanism and into, democracy and these other things, which the founding fathers did not support. It didn't support majority rule. America is set up on minority rule. Or let me say it better this way, minority protection, not minority rule, but minority protection. Not the arbitrary rule of the majority, but protecting minority rights, especially those of religious freedom. The Catholics are a very, very big denomination. They have 1 billion people. We're a small people. We're a remnant. So we need, in order for Third Angel's message to go out, we've needed those protections, the protection of religious liberty. And so this is a plot. This is a scheme. Have no doubts about it. Have no doubts about it that there has been a Catholic papal conspiracy to bring in swarms of people down through the last 2 centuries to get loyal adherents to the papacy inside America and to take over our institutions. Catholics breed more than Protestants do, right? They've been having lots of babies, and Islam has the same tactic as well to have lots of babies inside the country that you're taking over. Islam is taking back over Europe again, right? It was the first caliphate, the Saracens, the Umayyad Caliphate. They took over Spain, all North Africa, former Roman territories. They took them over. They took over most of Eastern Rome, Byzantium. Then the Turks finished them off. The Turks took over Eastern Europe, got all the way to Vienna. They were inside the Hungarian Empire, right? They're dealing with that again. Now it's been more subtle this time. There's all these Pakistani immigrants in England just raping women. They've got London now. Where I think this London's only 28% white. So they basically like that's where the Reformation. I mean, this is the home of Wycliffe, of Wesley, of John Knox, right? This is where Protestantism took deepest hold on the British Isle. And it was those Anglos that came to America and settled America, right? So the Reformation continued on because England started to backslide. So they're like, we have to get away from these Anglicans. They're like papists now. And so that culture, that religion was preserved in America. And that's what Miss White came out of, right? The Wesleyan Church. So what I'm saying is there has to be in our evangelistic efforts, there has to be an effort to educate people to what made America great because MAGA has all these Catholics, all these apostate Protestants, and they're like their idea of make America great. A lot of them, I can see this. It's like we need to go back to like the 90s or the 80s. But that was already an apostate America. That was right before 9/11 when God was about to judge it for being so apostate. And so really we have to say, well, what is truly America first principles? What is truly how would America ever become great again? Would be as if it returned to religious freedom. Now we also have to say, hey, prophetically, that's not going to happen. It's the handwriting's already on the wall. As Americans, we've fallen asleep at the wheel, and we've allowed traitors to come in and take over this country. And there is no going back. Christ is coming soon, and that's the good news: is Christ is coming soon. But America is going to fall. It can never be made great again because essentially, too many immigrants have come in. There's too much debt in the system. But culturally, and even more important, ideologically, religiously, theologically, we have there are too many here that hold to the that are drunk on the wine of Babylon, and they've done too much. They've done too much damage. The Catholic Church is has almost completely taken over all of America. What I'm saying is we need to educate people to the fact that what made America great, what made this nation great, what made this people great was the truth of Protestantism, the truth of republicanism. So that's what it is. That is what it is. Okay, continuing. So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet colored beast full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. Now, we're not going to go to Daniel 7 and proof text beast, that's kingdom. But you would need to do that if you had a newcomer. You would need to take them there and proof text that out for them. But let's look, a picture is worth 1,000 words. So we looked at this one. We see him, we see them, the Pope sitting there as God. He's speaking great blasphemies. He thinks he's the Son of God in the flesh. There's no delusion in my mind that is greater than that. So if I say papacy, I say scarlet, I'm going to get these images, and they dress just as it's spoken of in the Bible. Remember, we're sticklers for the literal. We take the Bible literally, unless there's some good reason to suppose it's figurative. And then if we do have to admit to the figure, we are going to even interpret that it by that which is literal. And here you we have this kingdom here. It's sitting in between many nations, kindreds, tongues, and people, and is dressing in scarlet and gold. I mean scarlet and purple. Okay. Just as the Bible says, it's a scarlet colored beast. And the woman, it's a church, was arrayed in purple and scarlet color and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand full of abominations and filthiness in her fornication. The triune God is the filthiest of these fornications. It's the most deceptive of all the creeds. Perhaps only it rivals also the teaching of original sin, and that Mary was never a sinner, and that she was without sin, and Christ had a didn't take on sinful flesh, and and that's why they're baptizing babies because they believe that they're alienated from God. That's a very harsh perspective and a bad opinion to have of God. God does not Babies are not alienated from God. We become alienated from God ourselves when we choose to sin against him. When we choose sin, that's when we become alienated to God. So this Augustinian Catholic perspective that equates fallen nature and makes it sin is not true. Fallen nature has the proclivity to sin. Fallen nature has the inclination to sin. But sin requires the action of the will. It's a choice. We're the only ones to blame for sin. And that's going to be made so apparent in the judgment when God is sitting on the throne judging us. Every mouth is going to be speechless. They're not going to be able to blame it on them on their it's not my fault. It's just my nature. It's just who I am and this kind of thing. No, the grace was there, the strength was there, the knowledge was there, the wisdom was there. You had a conscience which lets you know that it was wrong and you chose to do wrong. And God was even providing you supernatural power. It's going to be shown in the judgment that supernatural power from God was even there to subdue your fallen nature. So you're not going to be able to blame it on your nature. It's going to be proven that wicked people were really wicked, that this is what they chose to be. They chose this. They chose the devil over God. They chose pleasure over God. They chose immediate gratification over eternal life. It's going to be proven. So that doctrine too is really, really bad, and they make that a test question too. That you have to believe in this and these and original sin and infant baptism and all of these other things. So that one is really bad too. The one on the nature of Christ is really bad too, but the other one on the divinity of Christ, the triune God, um, worship, that's really bad too. And so those two are really, really bad. It's hard to say which one is worse. And so these are these abominations, these fornications, making these into creed and making it such a test question that you even get the state behind you to kill people that don't believe in it. Yeah, this is why God's going to destroy the world because this is what's going on down here. They're turning the truth of God into a lie. The mystery of iniquity is working. And upon her forehead was the name written Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and the abominations of the earth. This is good too because it shows that there's other harlots, there's other false denominations. The mothers had her day, now it's the daughter's day. So you have the apostate Protestant too, which have these same creeds. They've not reformed from them. And even some of the more peculiar harlots, like Mormonism and Jehovah's Witnesses and such, those are harlots too. They keep the first day of the week too. That's the mark of her authority, changing the solemnity of the Sabbath, changing the actual Decalogue. So this is an abomination. There's an occult mystery religion intertwined in the Catholic Church. Her rites, her eulogies, She's baptized them again in Christianity, clothed it in Christian languages, but there's something very devilish. There's something pagan here. There's this mystery religion that's very ancient, and so that's her. And they dress up as you know as Babylonian priests, Dagon, right? They have um, yeah, this one here, this kind of this bizarre hat. It's amazing that people don't see through this. That's because they're drunk. That's why they don't see through it. When you drink your inhibitions, you lose your inhibitions. It's also interesting though when you drink literal alcohol, the type of fornications that people do, right? They wake up next to strange people in their bed and they're like, I can't believe that I would fornicate with this person. This is a horrible person. This is a disgusting person. Um, Oftentimes physically revolting too. There's an expression when you drink that you get beer goggles. And so people that are physically unattractive to you become attractive to you, right? When you drink a lot. And your ability to say no to the flesh, you lose that ability. The conscience becomes silence and that filter. You're basically become very animalistic. You get so drunk that you black out. You're still living. It's not like you're asleep, but it's like you're sleepwalking and you're doing all these horrible things because only your reptilian nature, only your animalistic nature is alive. You do all these horrible things. And so it really is a good metaphor, a good symbol that the Bible is using because when you look at these people, it's so ridiculous. Look how pompous they are. Look how anti-Christian they are. They have no to dress like this, you don't have piety. You're not sincerely following the Bible. You're dressed up like a Babylonian a priest. They're dressed up like pagans, sitting in these grandiose temples, which could be sold off and used to promulgate the Bible. They're glorifying themselves. And I saw the woman drunken with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. And look what's going on here. Look what's going on here. So you just open up some history books, and this is not even the half of it. This is not even 1/1000th of it. Miller says if one word lacks fulfillment, you have to look again. You have to look for a different historical event to match the prophecy. We need the persecuting power. We need them wearing purple and scarlet. We need them codifying these creeds. We need them using the force of the state to do their bidding. We need them coming up out of Europe. And the angel said unto me, Wherefore didst thou marvel? I will tell thee the mystery of the woman and of the beast that carrieth her, which has the 7 heads and 10 horns. So we have this takes a bit more time to explain and proof text out. You have to proof text out horns, you have to proof text these powers out. Um, but Rome, let me see if I have a quick. We have the 10 toes, we have the 10 horns. So when Rome broke, there was 10 nations that developed, sometimes more or less, but overall there was 10 different nations that came out of Rome. So that's one point there. I'm going to see if I have another picture. We have 7 heads, and there's a riddle tied to it. And here is the man which hath wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth, and there are 7 kings, 5 are fallen, and one is. So the 7 heads are these 7 kings or 7 mountains, and there are 7 kings. 5 are fallen, and one is, and the other is not yet come. And when he cometh, he must continue a short space. So these 5 kings, they don't rule, they aren't contemporaries of one another. They're not contemporaneous. They're successive. 5 are fallen in John's day. Five are no more. One is currently existing, and then one is to come. And this is why we say the seventh is the papacy and the beast that was and is not. Even he is the eighth and is of the seventh. and goeth into perdition. Just to prove to you really quick, you hop over to Revelation 13, having 7 heads and 10 horns. So same power that's in Revelation 17, 7 heads and 10 horns. Also speaking blasphemies. Okay, so definitely the same power. And I saw one of his heads, as it were, wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wandered after the beast. So the seventh head is the papacy. It's the one that suffers the deadly wound. It's the one that reemerges. And so when we're here, 5 have fallen. One is this is Imperial Rome. This is the power that was ruling in John's day. That's the one that is. And so that's number 6. And the other is not yet come. Okay. And when he comes and he goes into perdition, and and so that seventh is the one that comes after the sixth, right? Even he is of the eighth, which I believe is alluding to the fact that it suffers a deadly wound. It was, is not, and then it is again, right? So here's the seventh, but it would suffer a deadly wound. It's not, and then it is again. It's the eighth as well. Who were the 5 that were before Imperial Rome? Well, according to historians, you have kings, councils, dictators, and decemvirs. A Lutheran reformer, Osiander establishes kings, council, decemvirs, dictators, triumvirs, emperors, and popes. Okay, so that's early Lutheranism. So you have kings, councils, a committee of 10, dictators, a committee of 3, then emperors, that's individual, and then popes. So you have kings, and they reform to a republic. Then the republic starts to degrade. You have like committee of 3, triumvirs. Then it goes to imperial Rome. Right, and then papacy. So you have Rome and its different phases. They went through 7 heads, right? And we can see that it's successive, right? It's chronological, right? So don't get caught up into like Babylon, Medo Persia. Some people sort of try to say like Babylon, Medo Persia, Greece, Rome, papacy, then like UN or something like that, America. This is the old beast. America is not going to be one of the heads because this is the old beast, right? This is the first beast. America is its own beast. America is a lamb-like beast that speaks like a dragon. So don't get caught up into that interpretation. That's I think more like Louis Weir supporters and people of that sort of mindset. Books of a New Order would be written to undo how it is in our older publications, like Daniel and the Revelation, and how Miller had it, and how Uriah Smith had it, how J.N. Andrews had it, and how the pioneers had it. Let's go with the pioneers. Let's go with the Lutherans, the old Lutherans. I mean, we're talking 1511. This is when the Lutherans were God's people, right? So God's people, Protestants had it this way. And then somewhere along the line, there's like a newer theology came in. Just that which is new is not true, right? The new light unfolds out of the old light, right? So let's build on this. Let's keep it on the focus on Rome. Let's keep the focus on the papacy. It's 100% Rome all the way through. Rome, 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 Rome. This is Rome through and through. This beast is 100% Rome. That dragon there that you see on the screen, Rome. That leopard beast, Rome. It's Rome and it's Rome in its 2 phases, the pagan phase and the papal phase. But what we're saying is that Rome went through some evolutions of government. They were kings, they became a republic, they had the triumvirate, then there was the papacy, then the seventh uh, is also of the eighth. The seventh would suffer a deadly wound. That's what this is. Keep it simple. This is the wisdom that God is having us go with here. Okay, so that's the 7 heads. And so this is another indication that this is Rome. Revelation 17 is Rome. Mystery Babylon is the papacy. We don't want to take the focus off Rome, start talking about Babylon, Medo Persia, Greece, all of these other things. It's 100% papacy, 100% Rome. Okay. Okay. The beast that thou sawest was and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit and go into perdition, and they that dwell on the earth shall wonder, whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they behold the beast that was and is not and yet is. What I believe this saying is the papacy is coming back. It was, for a little while, it was not. General Berthier walked into Rome, took the Pope captive, but it's going to spring back up. It is a leopard beast, right? The leopard beast is stalking, and it doesn't make its move until it's ready. Okay, here's the mind that has wisdom. We went into that parable there, and the 10 horns which thou sawest are the 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. This is the church and state coming together again. It's happened once in the past, and that's why you should read this, because some people get into a debate. They say, is this past? Is this future? It can be both, because this beast was and is not and yet is again. Yes, the 10 horns which thou sawest, talking about the 10 kingdoms of Rome, they united with the papacy, right? They were united for the papacy. There was a prophetic period, right? They united with the papacy during that 1260-year period. Now, why that history repeats. That beast suffers a deadly wound, but it repeats. It comes back, right? The wound is healed. And for 1 hour, for a short season at the end of the world, we're going to see the kings again. We're going to see the powerful nations again come and unite with the papacy to crush God's people. These have one mind and shall give their power and strength unto the beast. So I would say let this be past and future. The pioneers were right. They saw how this was fulfilled. There's Miss White has a quote where it's seemingly future, and that's because it is. She's clear about that. So it's there's no contradiction here. This beast was and is not and yet is again. And we need the historical precedent. We need the historical precedent as well to show how things are going to play out in the future. These shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall overcome them, for he is Lord of lords and King of kings, and they that are with him are called and chosen and faithful. And he saith unto me, the waters which thou sawest, where the whore sitteth, are the peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues. And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh, and burn her with fire. This happened. There's a historical precedent for this too, because the, Germany turned on the papacy, England turned on the papacy, all the nations, right? They turned on the papacy. France came and delivered it its deadly wound. But certainly this is going to happen again as well. There is a future application for this. And I'm not one that gets into that. Most times when people talk about double applications and things like that, it's false. But there are times, like the parable of the wise and foolish virgin. There's a double application for that prophecy. This prophecy is talking about the beast that was and is not and yet is. There's a double application for this prophecy. For God hath put in their hearts to fulfill his will and to agree and give their kingdom unto the beast until the words of God shall be fulfilled. And the woman which thou sawest is the great city which reigneth over the kings of the earth. So is it the Jew that reigns over the kings of the earth, or is it the papacy? I'm going to see papacy. Now, I'm not trying to belittle the Jewish conspiracies. They are very true. I just don't want anybody, and I know people on this call are not likely to go to an extreme with the Zionist conspiracies. Those are part of Bible prophecy too. The apostate, the false prophet is using the dispensationalism and the Zionism to bring people to the Battle of Armageddon, where it's going to be fought down there. We see the beginnings of it already now on the news, right? The bombings in Iran, the Gaza desolation. Israel's pushing into southern Syria. The Turk wants to go to Jerusalem. Erdogan wants to go to Jerusalem. All the nations are angry. Everybody's pointing fingers at everybody. The true source of all the discontent is this vile whore. She's a whore, right? She's a fornicator. She's fornicating with everybody. She's causing confusion everywhere. So this is the, it's not that the Jews aren't um, meddling in American affairs through APAC, and they have powerful lobbyists, and th it's hard to criticize them because they say everything's anti-Semitic and all this. They are doing a wicked work, right? But who's propping them up? Evangelicals are propping them up. The papacy's propping them up. And so, really, the power that's even above the Jew, as powerful as the Jew is, controls media, controls banking, has a lot of politicians bribed, Epstein's sexual blackmail operatives, operations. That's all true. But papacy's doing those things too, right? Papacy is involved in all sorts of sex trafficking too. These priests and these nuns, a lot of them are very vile, and they've got and so yeah, the Jews have a lot of soft power. I'm going to end it here. This is where I want to conclude this. The Jews have a lot of soft power. They do have a real stranglehold on U.S. media, and they're just like how they did in World War II when they turned Berlin into a Sodom and Gomorrah. They've turned LA into a Sodom and Gomorrah. So people are rightfully critical of Jewish behavior, right? They're very, very they've brought a lot of degradation and immorality to the United States. So people are very, very critical of that, and rightfully so. And the Jews do have a tremendous amount of soft power via banking, financial warfare, media, and such. But the Catholics also have a lot of power too in universities and the hospitals. Both the Jew and Catholics have a lot of power in the political realm. But what the Catholics really have a lot of power over, and this is biblical, and there's a biblical and historical precedent, is they have arms standing on their part. They have the military industrial complex, CIA, FBI, military is loyal to the Pope, we're going to see as time goes on, more than to the Jew. Now they overlap because part of the wine of Babylon is the Zionistic teaching. So the Jew and the Catholic are really in a lot of ways working together. And I think maybe and then that's something that we should probably do a better job of showing. Um, but what I'm saying is at the very top of that pyramid, you have Jesuits, you have the Pope, you have the Antichrist is at the top. The Pope is at the top. And, people have so many different theories about Illuminati and Freemasonry and all these different things and Jewry and all these different things. And they're sort of getting at it, but what they're missing is the simplicity of it. The simplicity of it is that it is the Pope. It is it is the Pope. He is the Antichrist. It is these fraternal Catholic fraternities like the Jesuits and the Black Pope, and they're fornicating with these rich kings of Europe, um, and they're very, very powerful, and that's really the source of corruption and falsehood. Um, they again, education, medical system, military industrial complex. So it's not to say the Jews aren't a very powerful bloc, but the Catholics are really the ones that are pulling the strings at the highest level. And then you can't forget also that there's other powerful interests too, like the kings of the East, the BRIC nations, China, Islam, and Bible prophecy. So the power is decentralized. It's in a lot of ways it's decentralized. It's a lot of definitely powerful interests, and the nations are all fighting against each other. Satan's kingdom is divided. It's not a unified kingdom. It's not a unified kingdom at all. So there's a lot of different powerful interests, and some people think that Satan's kingdom is a unified kingdom. They look at the world through that lens.